So the Open Telemetry in Practice series is traditionally a pretty serious talk series where we every month we go deep into implementing Open Telemetry in a particular language, and we talk to an end user and who's actually implementing it in production, and we talk to usually a maintainer of the project who can talk about like these are the best ways to implement. And this is a little bit different of a format because we decided to do 3 or 4 short talks that didn't fit well together. Adriana is going to lead off today with talking about observability for HashiCorp products. She currently works at Lightstep and used to work fully in a HashiShop.
Yes.
And then a little bit later, we'll have Reese talking about how end users can get involved with the project, which I expect to be highly interactive. And Jessatron is going to give us a talk about using OpenTelemetry to make ASCII art in heat maps, which
Pixel
is
art.
cool. You are trying to get your team to learn about OpenTelemetry and pay attention, and utterly useless.
Perfect.
Adriana, you ready to?
Yeah, I'll start. So I'm ad hocing this. All right. So as Rin mentioned, I used to work at a HashiShop. So I actually have a Kubernetes background, was thrust into this HashiCorp world where my previous employer, they ran their containerized workloads on Nomad. So I found myself in a situation where I had to quickly understand this Nomad thing because I was managing a platform team which supported Nomad, Console, and Vault for the entire enterprise. So that's how I began my dabblings in the Hashi world, and from that I ended up becoming a HashiCorp ambassador because I dug in, blogged about it, and continue to do so. And at the same time, at this former company, I was also managing an observability team. And I came to learn about observability team at around the same time that I came to understand Nomad. So these were 2 things that I was doing at the same time, learning about at the same time, which led me into OpenTelemetry. So now that I work at Lightstep, I've had a chance to contribute more in the OpenTelemetry community. As I mentioned before, I've worked in the comms area, so I've contributed some content to the doc site. I've made some contribution demo app. And I was actually pleasantly surprised to learn about the demo app, which I think launched, it's relatively recent, right? That the demo app came out, and I like it because it showcases OpenTelemetry, like what you can do with OpenTelemetry. And I think the original version of the demo app that came out, you could run everything in Docker Compose locally. And then more recently, there's the team created Helm charts for the, and so it got me thinking, hey, if this thing runs Kubernetes, wouldn't it be super cool to get this thing to run on Nomad? And so it's been part of my wish list ever since I learned about like the OTel demo app Helm charts. I'm like, okay, finally carved out some time to do this. And I got it up and running in a local Hashi environment on my machine. So there's this really cool tool called HashiCube, which is similar to, like running Minikube or K3s or whatever, like one of these like local Kubernetes dev environments, similar sort of thing for the Hashi stack, which was created by a third-party company called Servian. And I love using this tool because it gives me like a full-fledged Hashi environment, similar to what you would get. I mean, obviously smaller scale to what you would get in a data center, but it replicates the type of setup, because in real life, the Nomad by itself is kind of useless. So you need like the power of Console for service discovery and Vault for secrets management, along with Nomad to get all this stuff. to really have like a robust system to manage your containerized workloads. So I have this HashiCube running on my machine locally, which I can show you. I'll do like a little screen share. Well, first I'll show you my HashiCube. Oh wait, am I sharing the right one?
Sharing your HashiCube.
Cool. I have like so many windows open.
Whether it's the correct HashiCube, I don't know, but it's a HashiCube.
Yeah, okay, so it says this is my HashiCube startup sequence. So HashiCube, what it is, so it's basically using Vagrant to provision either a VM, a VirtualBox VM, or I'm on an M1 Mac, and VirtualBox and M1 Macs don't play nice. I think there's like possibly a version of VirtualBox that plays nice with M1 Macs now, but at the time it didn't. So the maintainers of HashiCube basically stand up all these Hashi products in a single Docker image. So this version of HashiCube that I'm running, where you can see like the tail end of the startup sequence here, it's running Nomad Vault Console all in one Docker image. And so if I I'll share you my Nomad console here so you can see. Problem when I lose sight of all my windows. Oh, here we go. Okay, so this is Nomad, and these are all of the services that make up the OTel demo app running on Nomad locally on my machine, which is pretty freaking exciting. I basically, so I had to go through the Helm chart. There's for the OTel demo Helm chart. There's a folder in the Helm chart repo that shows like the rendered YAMLs. So I basically started with the rendered YAMLs and went through the process of translating these Kubernetes manifests for each service into the equivalent Nomad job spec, which is what you see here. So for example, like we're looking at the feature flag service. This is running on Nomad. And if we go over here, we can see there's a lot of stuff here. So we can see the logs of the feature flag service. Nothing terrible is happening. Here we go. It's running. So we can see from our dashboard here that all of the services are up and running. So it's made up of like all these different services written in different languages. Plus, we also have, I had to nomadify Redis, Postgres. We had the OTel collector. What else? There was one more. There was Prometheus and Grafana. And I use Traefik for load balancing so I can expose my services to the outside world. And so what that looks like then, so to be able to access the OTel demo app's endpoints, and hopefully my computer won't crash here. So I access endpoint called otel-demo.localhost, which is accessible. This is just something accessible off my local host, and then the so Jaeger UI is exposed as part of my demo app configuration. So we see Jaeger is up and running here. We've got the demo apps UI running here, so we can buy stuff. We can check stuff out and buy. Let's buy this Telerik site and. Super. And then if we check like Jaeger, we can look to see. Sorry, the screen sharing thing is like getting in my face. We can see our traces. I think the hamsters are running really, really hard here. We can see it's produced some traces here that we can see here. In addition, when I nomadified this, there is also some Grafana dashboard. So some cool dashboards that come preloaded, pre-configured. You can see there's some stuff going on here with the OTel collector. And then there's also this demo dashboard, which gets some stats from the recommendation service. So that's basically it. I can show you also like what a job spec looks like in Nomad.
I want to see more traces.
Oh, you want to see more traces?
Yeah. There was
Okay.
just the
I know,
one
I
with
picked
just
like
the
a
cart
really
service.
one, right? I picked like the saddest trace.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you're like ad hocing it. Okay, let me let's pull up a more interesting trace. I think the recommendation service has interesting traces that we can see.
Checkout's usually good.
Check out, cool. Let's find some traces. Oh,
Yeah, look at all those. Look at all those
Look
services.
at that.
Yeah, there's some
Ooh,
colors.
there
Look
we
at it
go.
go to all the different services.
Yeah, this is actually pretty cool. You're right. I picked the dinkiest to showcase all this, right? And all this is happening like on my machine in this like Docker image that's running like all the hashy things, which is super cool. I did want to show also like what a Nomad job spec looks like. Let me just share my screen for that.
So Nomad is like, it's an alternative to Kubernetes, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and it's interesting too because it doesn't just run containerized workloads, like it can run like VM workloads, it can even run like a JVM or like IIS. So it's kind of cool that way. Here we go. Sorry, I was looking for the one. Okay, so let me pick let's hear
And a job spec is like a Kubernetes deployment.
Yeah, exactly. So here I've got Kubernetes deployment. I'll put it side by side here. All right, cool. Okay, so this is the feature flag service on the right. We've got the feature flag service definition. This is our Nomad job spec. So unlike Kubernetes, where you have like all these different YAML files that make up the various objects that make up your manifest, everything is self-contained in one job spec file, which is written in HCL, which is a HashiCorp configuration language. So I liken it to like, I mean, if you've used Terraform, like this, it looks familiar. I find HCL is like if JSON was like slightly improved, that's what it would look like. I do find it's like easier to read than JSON, but this is basically what it looks like here. So for example, over here in our network definition, you see that we define two ports, 8081 and 50053, which lo and behold, we define those over here in our service YAML for the feature flag service. And then if we scroll over to here, so to this task definition, we're saying that we're using the Docker driver. So this is saying, okay, we're using containerized workload. Let's find the equivalent in the manifest. All right, here. So we go to our deployment and we can see is where we define our image. I've defined an image pull timeout because sometimes my network doesn't like to behave. So I don't want Nomad to like crap out after 5 minutes and say, sorry, I can't pull your image, sucker, and then fail my deployment. Over here, we've got the ports configuration basically saying, well, just like here, we're saying that this container requires these two ports. Well, on the left side here in our HCL, we see that our HTTP and gRPC ports that we defined up here, that's what they're pointing to. And then the other thing that I wanted to point out was over here in this env definition, these are our environment variables, which on the most part correspond to the ones that we define in our deployment. I did exclude some like these Kubernetes, OTel Kubernetes ones, because obviously we're not running this in Kubernetes, we're running them in Nomad, but the non-Kubernetes ones I translated over to Nomad land. And then I wanted to point out also that over here in this, what's called the template stanza, so basically the groupings and the curly braces, they call them stanzas. I'm defining 2 additional environment variables, but they're defined in a slightly different way because they're referencing services from other Nomad job specs. So here, to be able to reference, for example, our database service, to get the information, so the IP address and the port of the database service, we can't hard code that information, right? Because that stuff can potentially change, especially the IP. So in order to get that information to define this environment variable, we have to use, we basically have to look up this service in console, which, as I mentioned, is for service discovery. And so to find out what the information of that service is, you refer to it by service name. So if we open over here, I'm going to open this FF Postgres. So this is the job spec for Postgres. I have a service named FF Postgres service, which if we look over here, where did I call it? Here we go. Over here. So it basically says, hey, console, I want to pull up a service called FF Postgres service, and pretty please tell me the address and port number of the service so I can plug it into this environment variable. And so we use the template stanza to do this kind of dynamic definition, and we have to tell it that the destination is going to be an environment variable, because one of the things that you can do with the template stanza as well is you can use it for configuration files. So similar, like very similar in functionality to a config map in Kubernetes. And then here is where we define our resources. This is in megahertz, our CPU, and our memory is in megabytes. And then the other thing that I wanted to point out is here I've got some rules on restarting the service. So because there's no dependencies that you can define in your services in Nomad, like, how you would do in Docker Compose saying, hey, this service is dependent on that service. You don't have that kind of dependency definition in Nomad. So basically the jobs start when they start, which means that, like, for example, this feature flag service is actually relying on the database and the OTel collector to be up and running. Well, what if the feature flag service starts before the OTel collector and the database start up? If we don't put some restart rules in place, then when it starts up and these 2 services aren't up, or one of these 2 services isn't up, it'll crap out, and then that's it. It's dead. So what we want to do is put some restart rules over here, basically saying, within the span of 2 minutes, we're going to try to restart this thing 10 times with a 15-second interval between restarts. And either after 10 attempts or 2 minutes, whichever comes first, if this fails to restart, we are basically going to say, okay, we're just going to wait a little bit and reattempt that again. The default mode for this normally is fail. So if it doesn't successfully restart in 10 attempts within 2 minutes, it would completely fail. And then that means your whole application deployment fails, right? Because of all these dependent services. So this basically gives you some protection saying, okay, well, we'll keep trying. We'll keep trying until things are up and running, which ends up being very, very convenient. And then the final thing that I wanted to point out was that we also have these checks here. So these are basically health checks. They're similar to the types of health checks that you would see in Kubernetes, like liveness probes and readiness probes. And I wanted to show you actually what that looks like in console really briefly. Let me just pull that up.
Yeah, and we're going to move on to Jessitron after the console showing.
All
So if
right,
you
yeah,
have
yeah.
more, Anna, think them up, please.
Yes, I'll show this very briefly, but this basically shows all of our services. And then it shows, like, if we look at the feature flag service, we have two services, one for our gRPCR. And so this shows us that, hey, like we are able to hit our endpoint. So it sends a signal back to Nomad, like all systems go, hurrah, hurrah. So that's basically it in a nutshell.
Okay,
Oh yeah,
anybody
blog post.
follow-up questions, last parting thoughts about? Nice job. Yeah, I agree. Nice job. That was a super good demo, and yeah, good example of how to use the demo app. So Jessitron is actually going to show us something totally useless but super fun for training people or teaching, how to make ASCII art into a heat map using OpenTelemetry.
Right, right. So I made this thing for Christmas gimmicks, I guess. I don't know. It's in a repo, honeycomb.io/happy ollie days, which is cute. And you can clone this repo or run it in Gitpod. And if you give it your Honeycomb API key, this is Honeycomb, like the UI is Honeycomb specific because it had to be specific to the display. But it does use OpenTelemetry. So I'm going to give it a Honeycomb API key. Oh, it's still in my paste buffer. Great. And then I'm going to run this little app. And this app is in Node TypeScript. So it has created a bunch of spans and in a trace using, here we go. Start active. So it does a start active span in Node, and then for each, it's figured out what spans it wants to send, and then it does a start span for each of them and supplies a bunch of attributes and then ends each one. They all go into one trace. Let's see, it's giving me a link to the data set. Oh, it's a good thing I'm following that link because apparently, would you go to the link? Go to the link. There it goes. Apparently my data set is called foo3. But then in the README, it describes how to do this. If you do a heat map on the height field and you get the last 10 minutes and you're starting to see something, but then I need to pick graph. No, up here. Granularity, 5 seconds. Ta-da!
Oh, that's so cute.
Isn't it cute?
That is
Whoa, that is amazing.
And the cool part is that you can use this program. I mean, I don't know what it's going to look like in any other system because I've customized the heights to the bucket sizes that Honeycomb uses in heat maps. So you'd have to tweak the code to make it do something in somebody else's heat maps. But it actually pulls this out of where is it? Images. No, there should be an images directory in here. Oh, input. Don't peek.png. So if you give it a PNG that's between 25 and 50 pixels tall, and you probably want it between 1 and 200 pixels wide, then it can convert that into a heat map. It's converting the heat map based on the blue channel in the PNG. It uses the other one to get some attributes, which does some fun things in Honeycomb, because you can pick bubble up and be like, what is different about, oh, check this out. Okay, my new favorite feature of Honeycomb, W. Ta-da! The stupid little do me anything is gone. Okay, which is very useful sometimes, I'm sure, but not in here. Okay, so now that I've gotten rid of that, what is different about the spans in the second reindeer? And Honeycomb does its little what is different analysis, and it says the reindeer name. That one has a reindeer name of Dancer. And then if you group by the reindeer name, you can go back and like, oh wait, hold on. I've got to do the trick of, wait, give me the right 10 minutes. It wants to like, the Santa and his reindeer are like moving on. I need to switch to absolute time. Okay. Now let's group by reindeer name. Okay, now it's lost the granularity, so let's fix that. Granularity, 5 seconds. Okay, but now results tab, and we have the different reindeer names. So there's no reindeer name. There's Dancer. This one is Rudolph, and this one is Prancer. And yeah, so it's cute that way. It's got different fields, and those are based in case you want to use this yourself and supply your own image. Those are based on the red channel in the PNG, and then there's a little key for how much red between 0 and 255 is in that color and what the fields are. So that's also encoded in the PNG, and you can do it yourself and make your own. This gets like officially released on Monday, and it'll be advertised and stuff. But I'm not in none of that stuff am I telling you how to fix it yourself. So y'all are getting that. And there's one other trick in this data, which is if you do a max of stack height and group by stack group, then you get some nonsense. But if you change the graph settings to use a stack graph, then you start to get something. And then if you get the order by right, stack group descending, come on, do it. Ta-da! A Christmas tree.
Oh my God.
That's awesome.
And that you can also generate yourself because that is based on house.png, obviously. It used to be a house, now it's a Christmas tree. And of course, there's limitations. You have to have like, all the colors have to be on top of one another, and you can't have a color that's both under and over, and you don't control what the colors actually show up as. But if you're clever, you can make your own PNGs. And then, oh yeah, I've got some groups on that. You can group by, oh, it is grouped by stack group. That wasn't necessary, but here's the names of them. Star and background and tree and stuff like that.
Jess, where do people go to find this app?
It is at honeycomb.io/happy holidays. And so, yeah, you can download this, and if you have a free Honeycomb account, or if you get it to work in another tool, that would be awesome. I would love to hear about it. Oh, thanks, Johnny. Yeah, so that's that. I will find stop share.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Daniel's like, I'm running, not walking to try this out. It's fun. It's true.
And
So I have a question, which is, how do you think this can be useful to people as a tool to teach about heat maps, observability, telemetry?
Yeah, because you can ask like, how do I draw it? And the answer is that I send a different number of spans, which of course, is it this one? Which of course I also stick all the intermediate data on the spans because how else would I debug it? No, that's clearly the wrong field. Show me the trace. I haven't made the trace cute yet. Someday I'll make this, have a drawing in it too. Span. No, count. No, how many? Oh, well. I send multiple spans per pixel if I want a dark color, because Honeycomb says darker is more and lighter is fewer. So there's just one span in these. Oh, you know what? I can find that field if I do bubble up. What's different about these that only have one? Spans at once. There it is. Okay, so the spans at once, these only have one span at a time. And some of the darkest ones have 10 spans at a time. So if you think, if you can use it to be like, how does a heat map? Mostly it's just entertaining, and it does really illustrate like bubble up. Letter, all of these, most of these are letters, and some of them have, they have different letters. Yeah. So bubble up is pretty well illustrated by this, I think.
Want to say briefly what bubble up is for folks who aren't honeycomb users?
Bubble up is honeycombs. What is different? So you can draw the box, and it does the statistical analysis on what fields are different. Yeah, that's mostly, it's just cute.
That was so neat. That was super neat.
So neat. If not questions, Reese, do you want to go ahead and talk about end user working group work?
I mean, yes, but also how do I follow up?
You are doing is systematic and important and slowly marching through things. Just got to do the fun, creative.
Yeah, that was so entertaining
For a week
this
for the
month.
holidays thing.
Yeah, this is I mean, I have some like 1 or 2 fun graphics, but it's not going to be anything as cool as Jesse Tron's. So you'll have to make do. Yeah, I just wanted to just talk real quick on something that we've surfaced just from talking to a wide variety of end users is a lot of people are not really aware of how to navigate the community, how they can get involved, or that they even can get involved. So I'm not sure. I know there's a couple contributors on the call. Not sure if everyone else is end user, but hopefully this will be of some utility for you. So a couple things we'll go over, just talking about the community at large, some of the different parts of it, and then we'll talk about how you can get involved if you're interested in some of the different ways that you can get involved. So we've mentioned a few times the end user working group that a lot of us are a part of. What is the end user working group? We have 2 primary goals. One is to foster a sense of vendor agnostic community for end users. And 2 is to create a feedback loop between the end users and project maintainers with the overarching goal of improving the project software. So what are some of the working group activities that we have implemented? So first of all, this is one of them. This is Rin's child, but we are very excited. OTel in practice is what it is. So every month, keep an eye out for more fun talks, presentations, and casual conversations. We have the monthly discussion groups now with a maintainer per session and in all regions. So America, EMEA, which I just found out stands for Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and APAC, which I'm actually not sure what that stands for, but it's Asia and the Pacific region. I'm actually not sure what AC stands for. And those are all on the OpenTelemetry public calendars. We also have end user interview and feedback sessions where we will talk to an end user about their adoption, implementation, and challenges that they faced, and get the feedback shared back to the OpenTelemetry maintainers. So if you're interested, if you're an end user and you're interested in sharing feedback in one of these sessions, please reach out to myself, Rin, or Adriana. We would be happy to get you on the schedule. And we are also new for end user interviews moving forward. We're going to turn them into profiles for the OpenTelemetry blog to kind of make the implementation and adoption that other end users have done in their organizations more discoverable. And we also have a community survey. So that's another way that you can contribute if you don't really want to get too involved, but you still want to have a way to share your thoughts and opinions on how using OpenTelemetry is for you. Some of the stuff that's upcoming for the working group, we want to extend our user study function. And also the governance committee is going to work to implement a project management function for the specification SIG to streamline the feedback loop from like all the feedback that we're gathering at these sessions and activities, and drive prioritization for work based on user feedback. And in-person meetups, this might be a thing coming to a town near you. Maybe we'll see. I think this would be a really fun thing to do, especially as like, I think, you know, a lot of us are just at KubeCon, and it seems like people are pretty into meeting in person again. So we'll see. And then SIGs, probably most of you are maybe familiar with these, but I'll just go over them. Special interest groups, the goal is to improve the workflow and manage the project more efficiently. Each SIG meets regularly. You can access the meeting notes and recordings through the public calendar. And there's pretty much a SIG or working group for pretty much all components, languages of OpenTelemetry. There's also a governance committee and a technical committee, which I won't get too deep into, but you can kind of see the roles of each committee here. Show you for a second. And I can also share the slide deck too, because there are some links to the resources that I mentioned in here. Documentation, yes, we have a lot of questions about documentation. If you do have questions, you can always talk to the ComSig at OTel-comms channel. Some languages we are aware are a little bit more comprehensive than others. There is standardization and improvement work in progress at the moment. If you would like to help contribute, feel free to jump into the channel, attend one of their meetings, or open an issue directly in the repo. Bonus, OTEPs. So I personally find it just kind of interesting to see what OTEPs have been proposed. They are OpenTelemetry enhancement proposals. It's a process for proposing changes to the spec. And they have to be cross-cutting changes that introduce new behavior, change design behavior, or otherwise modify requirements. And it's just kind of fun, personally, I think, to go and look at what people are proposing or wanting to do. There's some interesting stuff in there. Okay, and also getting involved. The first one I want to cover is how do I get help using OpenTelemetry? There are multiple ways. CNCF Slack, you have to sign up for an account with CNCF Slack instance, but once you get in there, there's pretty much an OTel channel for whatever it is you're looking for. Languages, components, collector, et cetera, et cetera. There's also vendor specific channels, or you can go to the general OTel-vendor channel if you're having problems with a specific vendor that you're using. And of course, GitHub. You can open issues, jump in with comments on anything that's open. And we also have the end user discussion groups, which I mentioned earlier. If you want to join and ask questions or share how you're using OpenTelemetry or help other people who are using OpenTelemetry in their organizations, that's another great way to get involved. And as far as contributions, we welcome any and all code and non-code contributions. If there's a specific language you're interested or a specific component, go check out the SIG, SIG notes, see what they're talking about, or you can hop into any of the meetings and just kind of check it out. Blog posts could be something that it could be something like fun and so-called useless, but really, if it brings so much joy, is it really useless? No. So something, fun that just did, could be anything OpenTelemetry related, basically. We would love to see it. As I mentioned, documentation, you are welcome to join the end user working group and give suggestions on things you'd like us to help with or do for you as an end user. And of course, you can also just share feedback. And there's different ways to do that. If you don't really want to get engaged with a interview, you are welcome to take part in our survey, which I thought I linked somewhere. I have linked the survey in here. If you would like to share feedback that way, that is great. If you would like to participate in the end user working group, or by way of the discussion group or end user interview, we would be very happy to have you. And that's it. That's all I have. Thank you so much. I should have added more jingles and Christmas stuff. I feel it's not very festive, but I promise I am very festive.
Thank you, Reese, and saying that for those not following the chat, Johnny's saying they participate in some conferences related to DevOps, and they like to share about the power of observability and how OpenTelemetry can help us make more easy our lives. Do folks have questions? Since we've got 10 whole minutes, we're happy to entertain if you have random questions about OpenTelemetry. We may or may not be able to answer them, but lots of knowledge in this room.
Yeah, and if anyone is having specifically
Questions about Reese's presentation, absolutely.
Well, actually, I was going to say about OpenTelemetry.net, we have a maintainer on the line.
Is that Alan?
Yeah.
Yes.
There are two.
Oh, there's
Me
Oh.
and Mike Blanchard.
Hello.
Oh,
two. Hello, Mike.
very
I'm
important.
on the spot.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thanks for
Alan. So
coming
that's
by.
what I know. That's why I'm like, it's okay if I call him out.
I will say that I tried to pull down the honeycomb
The happy holidays.
happy holidays. It's going to take a little bit of work, but I was going to try to see how easy it would be to get that reporting into a different tool, into like New Relic, and see if that see what it would look like. I'm sure it would look probably mangled.
Yeah,
But
it will look mangled initially. I'm like, if you want to work at that, and I'm happy to work with you on, like, I know where in the code it's choosing the height that works, and I also know like how I use the browser tools in Honeycomb to figure out what height it was needing. Which some of those tricks will also work in New Relic. So happy to work with you on that if you want. I would, because I would love to see what it looks like somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if they're still doing them, but last year Grace and I were doing a lot of Legos for New Relic. I've got some of them here, and I wonder if the Legos
How
are
cute.
amazing ASCII art.
Oh, that's true.
Grace is New Relic social media person and a huge Lego fan. But yeah, I think Legos tie in very well with ASCII art, and you know, lots of tech people are Lego fans, so.
True. That works.
Other questions that folks have? We can also go ahead and end the call early.
Yeah. Alan, I'm Jessitron at Honeycomb if you want to get in touch.
Yes, and I'll post the link to Jessitron's Calendly.
Sounds good. Yeah, nice to meet y'all.
You too. Well, thanks everyone. It was great to see you all.
Yeah, great to
Fun to
see
have a
everyone.
good, fun to have a chatty group.
Yeah, thank you all for joining, and a couple of you for putting yourself on video. That's always great for us
Yeah.
on Zoom to like see faces.
Cool. Thank you.
Hey.
Yeah, feel
Well,
free to reach out to any of us with questions or if there's anything you want to follow up on.
hi.
Bye.
See you all.
Happy
Happy holidays.
holidays.